Hello and welcome to another episode of KARE 11 on the Record. I'm political reporter Danny Spiewak. The Minnesota State Legislature has gone on its holiday break. They'll be off for the next week or so for Passover and Easter. And it's been a pretty tough session so far in a divided legislature, and especially with the House still tied with 67 Democrats and 67 Republicans. We saw in the final House floor session before break some tense moments as Democrats attempted to push legislation onto the House floor that would limit ICE access in schools and respond to the Annunciation Church shooting by banning assault weapons.
These families believe in us. They believe in the work we are doing here. And they have asked us to listen, to be brave, and to try. And they are not alone. 69% of Minnesotans who want us to ban these weapons of war are with them.
The Democrats don't have the votes. The Democrats don't have the votes to pass the legislation that they're doing right now. This is completely political theater.
But despite the tie in the House and the divided legislature, we are seeing some areas of common ground among lawmakers. One of the big success stories recently has been the advancement of the Office of Inspector General proposal in the House this session. It had stalled for several weeks due to partisan gridlock, but now is moving forward and has advanced out of two different committees. It would create an OIG statewide that would investigate fraud across Minnesota state government. It passed the Senate easily last year, and we spoke this week with DFL Senator Heather Gustafson, who is one of the leads on that bill. Well, Senator, thank you for joining us here at the Capitol. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You are the one of the lead sponsors on the OIG bill in the Senate, and finally seeing some movement in the House now. What is it like to finally see that potentially moving forward on the House side?
Yeah, about 2 years ago, I started working on this, and it was a lot of work just to get it attention, just to get it through a committee hearing. And now I'm very happy to see that all four caucus leaders are advocating for an OIG. I'm very happy this morning with the news that it moved through the state local government committee. That means it's on its way. It met deadlines. It's moving along the process, and it's all good news. Yeah.
For viewers that are still unfamiliar with the details, tell us again, from your vantage point, what is the importance of having a new statewide Office of Inspector General?
I think what makes the difference is the independence of it. And so people want to know that no matter who is in charge, whoever sits in the governor's seat, whoever's got the majority in the legislature, that there is an independent oversight authority that is minding the store, that is separate from political theater, that is just making sure that their tax dollars are going where they're supposed to go. That's what the OIG bill does. That's why I think it's so popular, not just here in the legislature, but also in Minnesota, because I think that independence is what people are craving.
So in the Senate this passed, as you've mentioned before, 60-7 last spring. But again, we already saw it fail twice in committee earlier in the session in the House. What was it like for you to watch the House with those partisan roadblocks, especially with the tie?
I think the culture is a little bit different over there because of the tie. Things can feel a little bit more divisive. Over here, I brought in Republicans early. As a Democrat in the majority, I did not need to bring in any Republicans, but I wanted to because I knew it would make the bill stronger. I knew more people would be bought in. And I also think it's important to have them shoulder to shoulder with us as we're establishing an office to fight fraud, because it's not a partisan issue, or at least it shouldn't be. And so we should all have a little bit of ownership in the way it's formed, the way it's written, and the way we go forward. So we did it the right way in the Senate. They're doing it, they're moving it along in the House, and I respect their process, but very happy we were able to pass it. If you think it's easy to get anything, 60 votes on anything in the Senate chamber, I'm going to tell you it's not easy at all. And so that's real testament to how popular the bill was.
Given that you have the Senate working on this, you've got the tie in the House, is this, would you say, one of the more complex bills you've had to negotiate in your time here?
Absolutely. It is the most significant anti-fraud bill to ever pass the Minnesota State Senate. And that is not something I take lightly. It's also why I wanted to bring in a wide group of voices. But yes, it not only is it important, does it meet the moment of where we're at, but also I think it is one of the reasons why a lot of us got into office, so we could tackle big problems, bipartisan, with a solution that made sense to Minnesotans.
What have your conversations been like with House Democrats? I know even some on the committee here in this week has said that they're still worried about not knowing the full cost and worried about some of the language.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's going to take their own path to get there. I think everybody understands it's important. I think everybody understands that it is a significant fraud prevention bill. And so I think some people are still trying to wrap their minds around it a little bit. I mentioned that all 4 caucuses, I should clarify, that's all 4 caucus leaders, and the governor has now voiced some support for it. And so that doesn't necessarily mean every single person in the caucus, and I think some of those people are coming along to it, but I know they'll get there. They'll understand and be able to see why this is needed.
Are you hopeful now that this can really pass in 2026?
I am hopeful. I mean, I don't want to, count my chickens before they hatch, but I do feel hopeful that it's moving through the process. It's out of the first committee. There's still going to be language changes. That's why we have 2 chambers. That's okay. But the fact that it's still moving, it still has momentum, and I think we're going to get it there.
When it comes to fraud, what else do you believe realistically could pass with Republican support this year?
I think transparency bills, accountability bills. I think putting some guardrails about how we dish out some of those state funds. I think those have a lot of bipartisan support. It's just making sure that we can get them to the floor. I know the Senate has put forward a fraud prevention package. I know that the House has one as well. I think we agree on a lot of the stuff. We just need to figure out what it is that can get moved right now and get passed.
When you look at the rest of the session, describe for people what it's like to work again in the most narrowly divided legislature in the country. It's 2 years in a row in this setting.
I think people really still don't understand how tight it is here. I mean, we have a 1-seat majority in the Senate, and then we have a tied House. And I bring that up because there are so many times where people will email me a really good bill idea, something that they know will help or, makes a difference in their community or their particular walk of life. But then my first thought is always like, okay, can I get a Republican on board for this? What's the path forward? What are the committee stops? Who's going to like it? Who isn't going to like it? That is even harder. It's always hard to do, which isn't always a bad thing. That's part of democracy. But it even gets harder when everything is so contentious. And so it's tough. That's really when you dig into those skills about, can I get along with folks? Those relationships you formed are really essential. And then it's, being able to compromise and say, like, I might not get every single thing I want, but if we can get most of what I want across the board and other people are happy and the stakeholders are good, then that's what we're doing for Minnesotans. I think that is why I liked our OIG bill so much, and I think it is what Minnesotans want. It's so funny, you'll get an email or a phone call that'll say, why aren't you fighting harder? And then the very next email or phone call you get will be, why can't you guys just work together? And so it is like a little bit of a mixed message, but I do think people want that. They want you to be bipartisan in the ways that make sense, and they want you to hold the line on the places that are important to them. So we try.
Given that you have to be realistic about what can pass in a divided legislature, what else outside of fraud are you hopeful other topics in the legislature that you think can get through this year?
Yeah, I have a couple of things that have quite a bit of bipartisan support. One, I passed a firefighter pension bill out of the Pensions Committee, and that's just making sure that the firefighters have the pension they deserved and worked for. I also carry almost every session domestic violence or sexual assault prevention bills. We have a couple of those this session. Those also have bipartisan support. And so you're really just trying to reach across the aisle. And there are a lot of topics that we can agree on. Maybe one of the most fun bills I'm doing this session is to create the toboggan as the Minnesota state sled. Normally that would not be something that I would be highlighting right now, but it is important because it came to us by a group of high school students who are tracking this bill, they're watching this bill, it was their idea. One, I love winter, I love Minnesota, and who doesn't love a good toboggan? But also for them to be able to watch the process and to be involved in it and to be able to say, okay, it has to go to a committee, it has to have enough support to get out of the committee, then it's got to have a motion for the floor. All of those things are important to get people to see that government can be used as a tool of good, and also just who doesn't love to go sledding in the winter?
Do you see that those conversations you have behind closed doors, are they different than what maybe the public sees on social media in terms of partisan politics?
Oh my gosh, absolutely, absolutely. I really, like, what you see sometimes are boiled down into talking points and social media bites and what would look good on a meme or a graphic or whatever. But if you just like sit and, if you watch me on the Senate floor, I spend so much of my time checking in with people. How are your kids? Oh, I heard about, your grandfather passed away. I'm so sorry. And they do the same for me, That's what I wish we could highlight more. It's just, I don't know in this day and age of social media algorithms if that's what people are offered. They're really anger sells. Anger is addicting, and especially online. So it's sad because there really are a lot of good relationships here. And the nice thing about having relationships with people across the aisle is that if you have a disagreement on something that is to your core values, I can call them, I can text them, I can go sit next to them and say, hey, I know we might not see eye to eye on this, but can I just explain to you why it's important to me? And usually you can come to a place of compromise. Not always, but a lot more than you think you can if you built those relationships. I like being in the Senate. We're a tighter group. We're not always on the ballot. We work together pretty well. I don't really know anybody in the Senate chamber that I couldn't call if I needed help with something. So I hope Minnesotans hear that too. There really are a lot of good examples of good governance.
All right, Senator, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
This past week also marked Ag Day at the state capitol, and our Heidi Wigdahl talked with farmers and farm groups about some of the challenges they're facing right now, including the workforce.
As farmers celebrate National Ag Day at the state capitol, they're also preparing for a new growing season that includes having to find workers.
Well, certainly we've heard some concerns, but realistically we haven't seen any firsthand examples of those concerns coming to fruition.
Dan Glessing, president of the Minnesota Farm Bureau Federation, says he's talked to farmers who use the H-2A program, which helps fill seasonal and temporary jobs by hiring workers from other countries.
They've been in conversations with their workers. They're ready to come for that seasonal work that they come up for every year or come over for every year. So we haven't really heard of much concern as far as a work shortage yet.
Right now, the labor situation isn't really anything new for agriculture. It's been an issue for the past decade.
Jenna Untied with Untied's Vegetable Farm in Waverly says they use the H-2A program. Their first set of employees arrived for the season, but even with the legal documents,
there is some concern with it because they've heard everything that has been going on here. So we've just really stressed to have their documents on them at all times if they do leave the farm.
When it comes to undocumented workers, the numbers aren't clear for Minnesota. But according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, more than 40% of hired crop farm workers in the U.S. hold no work authorization.
And these are individuals that have really built their life here in the U.S. We know that a lot of those people are afraid to go to work, unsure if they should go to work, things like that.
Heidi Wigdahl, KARE 11 News.
Welcome back. Minnesota has not yet joined the wave of states that have legalized online sports betting. It's been a topic for years, but it has stalled at the Capitol with bipartisan support and bipartisan opposition. There is another bill in the Senate, sponsored by a Democrat this year, that would legalize sports gambling in Minnesota with some guardrails. There are also other bills that would regulate gambling and sports betting in general. We spoke with Senate DFL Majority Leader Erin Murphy about the status of those bills.
We had a procedural hearing actually in rules. We haven't actually heard the bill this session, but there are two other bills related to gambling. Senator Rasmussen's carrying a bill dealing with sweepstakes. Senator Marty is carrying a bill dealing with prediction markets, and I think we'll see action on those as well.
I'm joined now by Professor Joshua Schuart from Sacred Heart University in Connecticut. He is the chair of the sports management program there, and they just commissioned a national poll related to attitudes around sports betting and sports gambling. And Professor, thanks for joining us here on KARE 11 on the Record. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, so this is obviously a huge issue in Minnesota. The legislature has been looking at potentially legalizing online sports gambling for several years now, but it's stalled. And so there's a lot of interest, especially this time of year with the NCAA tournaments, men's and women's, baseball season starting. Just what are some of the main takeaways from the poll that Sacred Heart commissioned?
So this is the second year that we've run this poll, so we were able to do some year-over-year analysis as well. The biggest takeaways were greater acceptance by the respondents, but also greater concern about integrity issues, impacts on the youth, and I think particularly with the growth of college athletics, concerns about younger bettors and younger participants in sports.
Were you surprised to see the growing number of people that were worried about integrity issues? Or I guess there have been so many issues across various sports where there have been big scandals, whether it's the NBA or even Major League Baseball.
Well, it happened to come out at a really opportune time with a lot of these scandals coming out. First with the NBA, then MLB, and then the college basketball, all sort of bang, bang, bang. So the timing was pretty unique. But I think the concerns, if you really dig into the data, were specific to age groups as well. So older respondents were much more concerned, and the younger respondents weren't, and they're the ones that everyone's worried about.
And I noticed in some of the polling that there was a lot of concern from the older respondents as to the impact on youth. Is that a big topic right now across the country of what this could mean for kids that are consuming sports?
Yeah, I mean, legalized sports gambling, can have great social impacts, positive and negative, and also, as you guys are discovering, economic impacts, in terms of revenue. But that also can be negative on a personal level, with loss of personal revenue. So, there's good and there's bad. And I think it's wise to be wary, as your legislators are doing. It looks like I got quickly up to speed on what's happening in the state, and they seem to be taking a very long, protracted look at this. And it looks like it's been going on for a long time. But any legislation should be really well thought out and future-facing, because as you can see with prediction markets, stuff pops up that wasn't even on the radar before, and you have to sort of account for that as well. So, specific to your scenario, it's wise that they're really thinking about it and trying to get it right. If they do go forward with it.
I don't know if this is a question you can answer, but looking at the other states, because now the majority of states have some kind of legalized form of sports betting. What does the legislation look like in other states? Are there some that have higher protections than others?
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. I call it a Wild West. Some states have it, really locked down. Some of them have limited legality. Some of them it's full blown. But as I mentioned with the prediction markets, that's sort of the interesting thing, because I think there's 11 or 12 states that are currently still illegal for sports gambling, but the prediction markets are allowed in all 50 currently, including yours. So, that's why I think, you really have to think this stuff out and look at all the different angles, and, I'm sure they are.
Your poll was interesting, and you talked about it of the growing acceptance of it, because it's kind of like ubiquitous, for people that are watching games, whatever sport it is. Is that something that surprised you, just how socially acceptable it is now, or maybe it didn't surprise you?
It's surprising to me. I think back to, when I was growing up, like it was Las Vegas was it, like if for gambling, and everything else was taboo. So the fact that it's so widely accepted across so many states, it is surprising. But as things become part of the everyday, and you see advertising on TV, you see it, you see it everywhere. You can't help but see the acceptance grow accordingly.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, the part of the poll that you did around whether people thought there were too many advertisements, when they're watching sports. And it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but could you tell our viewers what you found when it came to people's attitudes towards seeing all these ads during games?
Yeah, and again, I think that also dovetails in with the concern for the youth. Being exposed, when you're more impressionable, it has a bigger impact. So I think those things were interrelated. The advertising focus and the concern for youth. I think they go to get hand in hand.
Because we're in the middle of the NCAA tournaments, men's and women's, what impact do you think this just the rise in sports betting has when it comes to the integrity of college sports and just the the economic factors around what is really a multi-billion-dollar industry?
Well, I can't speak, I guess, specifically to the true integrity, but the concerns about the integrity and what people think. Is definitely a concern. You won't be surprised to know that the NCAA men's basketball tournament is one of the most bet on things, after the Super Bowl. So, we're right in the heart of sports betting. And the shocking part of it, one of the findings was how many people bet to make the games more exciting for themselves. I think it was like 70% of people watch games because they have a wager on it, which is sort of just an astounding number, and or high numbers like that where they feel more engaged in it. So there's a fan engagement piece. So there, it's not all gloom and doom. There's some positive things where marketers can tie into this and know that people are interested in the games themselves, but they might also have another interest that's very strong, humming in the background.
What are some of the concerns right now just around the addiction aspect of this? Are there, I know in Minnesota they've talked about trying to have really strong protections in place for that and investing in that. Is that something that you've seen has been on people's radar, at least across the country?
Yeah, and I know you mentioned or asked about other states earlier, and I know some states have actually built that into the models. So, they may allow it, they may become legalized, but they're part of the revenue may be going to addiction centers, counseling centers, call centers, to sort of proactively handle that. So it's very much of a concern. It's something that we've asked about. It's something we've discussed in professional panels as well. But yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of potential bad, and it's everything in moderation, as they say.
The last thing I just want to ask you is just for people that are wondering, maybe go into a little bit about just how you did the poll, who was polled and just the methodology behind it.
Sure. So we partnered for the second straight year with a firm called Great Blue Research, and it was a national poll, 1,500 respondents. It's a digital poll. We had some professors, some administrators, and the research company itself all designing the questions together and testing those, and then it goes out for digital administration, and it was done last month. So the data was all from February this year, so very fresh, and we had a year to compare because we did it similarly last year as well. So that was interesting to see some of those trends, and like you said, the biggest thing was just the continued growing acceptance year after year. And I would expect when we do it again next year, it'll be even stronger.
All right, Professor, thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Hey, and good luck to you guys.
Thank you. Well, we've been talking about measures at the state capitol that have been stalling this session. And this past week, that included a proposal in committee that would have lowered vehicle registration fees. There's been some sticker shock with those recently in Minnesota. But Araya Katene looked at the issue, what was being proposed, and why some Democrats said that it didn't make fiscal sense.
For many Minnesotans, a trip to the DMV is costing more these days.
It is what it is.
And for some, just like their bills, frustrations are adding up.
I'm thinking it should be a lot less.
Some of these guys are paying $800, $1,200 in tab fees or whatever. It's not worth it.
That's why Taylor Ward from Maple Grove drives a
97 Lincoln Town car. Old grandpa car.
Because his car was made more than a decade ago, he pays about $60 a year in vehicle registration taxes or tab fees.
It ain't worth driving a new one these days. You're paying too much just to drive it down the road.
In Minnesota, how much you pay for tabs depends on the age and value of your vehicle, with newer ones costing more, sometimes a lot more, to register. Under state law, a new vehicle loses 10% of its value in 3 years, but Kelley Blue Book estimates it's actually about 30%.
Individual people with their individual cars are getting priced
out of the state.
Aye.
Representative Patty Anderson sponsored a bill that would have lowered tab fees by lowering the tax rate from 1.5 to 1.2% and allowed cars to depreciate more quickly. She's a Republican who says Democrats previously passed laws that inflated the value of cars and made tab fees skyrocket.
It brings the depreciation schedule back to what it was, which is realistic, which is real.
But Democrats in the Transportation Committee voted against the bill, saying it would cost the state nearly $1 billion, with no realistic plan of how to get that money back for transportation needs like maintaining roads and bridges.
This is a really great headline bill that shows Republicans are going to be, whatever they are trying to sell this week. But the story behind it is that there's a $732 million budget hole you're creating with this bill.
How could this work in reality? You know this is wrong. You know that we can't do this.
The bill failed to make it out of committee this week as Minnesotans are left to deal with bills of their own.
Hope for the best. That's the only thing that I can say.
There's also a major change that occurred this past week in the state Senate. For the first time in its history, the Senate voted to allow kids onto the Senate floor. This was brought forth through advocacy by both GOP and Democratic senators who have young kids, who say they believed that the previous rules punished young mothers and deterred them from running for seats in the Senate. Here's that story with the change and the debate that happened.
Earlier this month, DFL Senator Claire Umo Verbaeten discovered a long-standing rule about the Senate.
Apparently, you cannot bring babies to the Senate floor, and they will actually enforce it and kick them out.
After Umo Verbaeten and her 7-month-old son Leo were escorted out that day, she shared her story on social media.
Being a mom has given me so much empathy for other moms.
Pretty soon, colleagues like DFL Senator Erin May Quaid and Republican Senator Julia Coleman began to speak up too.
There is no space or time given for mothers who are trying to breastfeed while serving in the Senate. Both Senators May Quaid and I lost our ability to feed our children. I lost my ability to breastfeed my premature infants.
Coleman described a time when she had to bring her 3-year-old son to the Capitol because of a child care crisis.
At that door, right there to my left, I had him put his hand on that door, and he was scared when I got down on his level and had to say, "Baby, you can't come with mommy today."
So they proposed a rule allowing kids on the Senate floor, which got some pushback.
My main concern, and the reason I rise today, is the space limitations in this room.
GOP Senator Karin Housley noted that members can vote remotely if needed.
We do have a lot of flexibility here in this career already, but we should be looking at some other options like a parent room off the side or technology so a parent can speak.
After nearly 2 hours of debate and failed proposals to add an age limit, the Senate approved the rule change with bipartisan support.
The resolution is adopted
to allow senators and their staff to bring kids on the floor.
This was historic and it was long overdue.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of KARE 11 On the Record. Remember, you can stream us every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and find us on demand and on YouTube.